unfulfilled housing waiting lists, demolitions by city councils, and of course, targets under the NDS1 towards the achievement of an upper middle income society by 2030 are some of the issues that the Ministry of National Housing and Social Amenities is contending with. Today, on State of the Economy, I am joined by the Minister of National Housing and Social Amenities, Honorable Zhemu Soda, to look at how his ministry is contributing to the realization of an upper middle income society by 2030, as well as human upliftment and social economic development. Honorable, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
For 2021, before the launch of the human settlement policy, the national housing backlog stood at around 2 million. How far have we gone in terms of meeting the housing needs and targets of the country?
When the Zimbabwe National Human Settlements Policy was launched by His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, in 2021, the policy document acknowledged that we had a deficit of housing units that were around 2 million. A lot of effort has been put to ensure that houses are provided. You will be aware that our national constitution, specifically chapter 28, acknowledges that shelter is one of the basic human rights, and all endeavors must be made by government, institutions of government, whatever the agents that we work with, to ensure that that basic human right is provided by government. So a lot of effort has been made since then. As we speak, the ministry has accounted for around 700,000 housing units that have been established since the commencement of the National Development Strategy 1, which commenced in 2021. Be aware that when we commenced this period, we had a target of 220,000 housing units, which we were supposed to achieve. But when we took stock in April last year, 2023, we had already surpassed the target. We had actually done around 272,000 housing units. So Cabinet, in its wisdom, had to review our targets to 1 million housing units that we are supposed to be achieving. That's the total of the housing units and the fully serviced stands that we are supposed to achieve. That's 1 million being our target. But at the end of this year, when we were assessing our performance for the current year, we have now ascertained that a total of 700,000 housing units have been established in the country, which accounts to around 70% of our revised National Development Strategy 1 target. We are very hopeful that our target for the NDS1 period will be achieved, because already we are just left with 30 percentage points, which we are very certain that we will achieve.
Let's look at issues of affordability. How affordable are these housing units that you are setting up and availing to the public, Honorable Minister?
You would be aware that the achievements that I've just spoken about are a culmination of collaborative efforts by a number of stakeholders that we are working with in the sector. We work with banks, we work with pension schemes, we work with insurance schemes, we work with individuals. Talk of the people that are in the diaspora who are also constructing their houses. As government, you might be aware that already we have demonstrated the commitment by government and its efforts through the rolling out of flats that we did in Zivarasekwa, just to demonstrate the direction by which government would want to provide social housing to the people of Zimbabwe. That's one of the projects. We have a lot more projects that are underway in Marondera, Dombotombo. We have a project that is almost at 90% completion. Those are some of the houses that government, using its own resources, pursuing. The government is pursuing in order to ensure that social housing is provided. Apart from that, through working with the banks that I've just spoken about, the ministry has facilitated access to finance to banks like CBZ. You might also be aware that Zimbabwe is a member of Shelter Afrique, which is a company that was formed in 1982 to provide housing funding, especially focusing on low-income earners. So through our shareholding that we have in the company, which has just recently been transformed into a bank, Shelter Afrique Bank, banks now have access to concessionary funding, which they are accessing from Shelter Afrique, and the bulk of that money is used towards provision of affordable housing. As government, we are also partnering with the private sector, where government provides land, we service the land, and have partners that will come to do the construction. And all that is aimed at ensuring that the low-income earners have access to affordable housing. Already at Zivarasekwa, where 4 blocks of flats were completed using government funds, we are in the process of finalizing our partnership, which will result in realizing about 70 more blocks of flats from the land that is adjacent to where the 4 blocks have been constructed. Yeah, there's potential to do 70 more blocks there. And assuming each block will have a capacity of 12 units, that will come to around 840 housing units that can be realized.
That's quite good news indeed, especially for the low-income earners. We are going to take a break. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back. This is State of the Economy. Today we are zeroing in on the Ministry of National Housing and Social Amenities. Honorable Minister, you spoke of the key developments that you have made in terms of housing provision, particularly targeting the low-income earners in Zivarasekwa and other places. But let's dig deeper into the achievements that your ministry made in the year 2024. What else happened?
Our ministry focuses on the provision of infrastructure. Just like a quote from Margaret Thatcher, when she once said that you and I come by road and rail, but economists travel on infrastructure. So Zimbabwe, in its quest to realize Vision 2030, obviously there has to be infrastructure that people must see. Just like we are witnessing every corner of the town, wherever you go, be it in rural areas, there is effort for new housing that is being developed. So for 2024, government alone has done quite a number of projects, some that got to finalization and the commissioning was done. The good example is Zivarasekwa that I've just spoken about. We also have some projects that have been technically commissioned. I mean, where certificate of occupation would have been issued by the technical people. We have in Lupane a housing project which was aimed at accommodating civil servants, some 19 F14 houses that got to finalization, and allocation has since been done to enable Lupane to effectively operate as the capital for Matabeleland North. So as a ministry, we were mandated to provide housing there. So the project is complete. In Binga, about 37 houses were completed, including some toilets. And apparently that was His Excellency directive after there was a disaster in Binga where some people were displaced. So those houses have been fully completed. We are also working with the private sector, like I indicated, and a number of projects are being done. And we are also pursuing some projects of our own as a ministry in Mtawatawa. We are constructing some flats, the first of their kind to be constructed in rural areas. That's our pilot project.
I was actually about to ask you how your ministry is making inroads in terms of provision of accommodation and transforming the landscape in the rural and remote areas.
A lot is happening. Just last week alone, we had an award ceremony, and that was the conclusion of a competition which we had launched as a ministry as a way of procuring some housing designs for rural areas, where the ministry through Studio 5 engaged a consultant in order to procure some housing designs for rural areas. Some students from institutions of higher learning from all over the country participated in the competition, where students creatively came up with some proposed designs that can be adopted by people in rural areas, and the adjudicators were looking at the region itself, because the housing aspect in rural areas speaks about the culture of the people. And that was also an aspect which was being looked into in the overall evaluation, whether the proposed designs were cultural specific, were regional specific, and whether the designs were also encompassing some modern trends of settlements, where we are looking at a settlement to be accessible. There have to be some roads. A settlement has to have a source of water, and also there has to be some waste management in a settlement.
But looking particularly at issues of sustainability, you are talking of concepts that speak to the culture and so forth. We are fighting climate change, trees being cut down and so forth. When you talk of construction in rural areas, mostly it's about use of the resources that are available in those places, the wood, the land and so forth, the grass. How then are you making sure that the new concepts coming in are environmentally sustainable and friendly, and also they project a futuristic outlook of what the rural places that you have in mind should look like?
The aspect of sustainability took a center stage, where in the designs, some were even proposing the use of cow dung. You know, most of the wealth that our people in rural areas have is stored through their animals, their cattle, their pigs, their sheep, and you name it. So we are envisioning a settlement where all that waste is collected, and there is a biogas digester where the gas is used for cooking purposes, the use of solar. This is natural sunlight that we have And there must be a way by which we should be tapping onto the sun that we have for the purposes of industrializing and also for provision of energy for domestic use.
It's an exciting future indeed. Thank you so much, Honorable. On that note, we are taking another break. We'll be back. Stay with us. Thank you again for staying with us. You're watching State of the Economy, and we are doing a roundup of the various ministries within government and how they are contributing to socio-economic development. In particular, today, we are focusing on the Ministry of National Housing and Social Amenities. The Honorable Minister, Honorable Soda Zhemu, is here looking at what his ministry is doing, what has happened in the past, and the way forward. Honorable, a critical issue that has been at the heart of the people of Zimbabwe has to do with demolition of houses, demolition of homes that people would have built using their hard-earned resources, and sometimes you find out that the demolitions are in a way legal. I want to find out your perspective as a ministry in terms of the need to provide housing and also the need to meet the legal obligations.
Thank you very much, Justin. With regards to demolitions, I think we need to consider the background as to why a decision can be arrived at to say some structures have to be pulled down. Some people are going around to acquire land in an irregular way. We have some land barons who goes around to trick our genuine home seekers that they would have been granted permission, particularly by the Ministry of Local Government, for a land to be developed. What we are then finding out is many times a procedure would have been overlooked, or a procedure or a requirement would have been undermined by the land barons. So what we would want to encourage our home seekers is to follow the proper procedures for home ownership. And whenever they are approached or they see some advertisements for homes, for land that will be on offer, the first thing is they must do due diligence checks before they commit themselves into buying a piece of land. And obviously, some letters have to be shown. Approvals have to be, should be granted, especially by the relevant ministries, so that we avoid a situation where home seekers have put some effort on some developments, but later it is discovered that the structures would have been built irregularly. Like I indicated earlier on, that our interest is that of ensuring a house that would have been built to stay, but sometimes that house would have been constructed irregularly. And obviously, when the law takes its course, that house has to be pulled down so that we don't affect other amenities that are supposed to be constructed. For instance, some people decide to construct houses on servitudes for electricity, on servitudes for roads, or on places where some supporting amenities are supposed to be constructed, like schools. We cannot have a settlement without schools, without clinics, without even creches for our people.
Let's move on to a more positive note, Honorable Minister. We have seen the President, Comrade Emerson Mnangagwa, spearheading the issuance of title deeds to some residents in the country. We have a case in point at the Epworth community who for years have been staying in that area. How are you working as a ministry to ensure that this process now goes on smoothly, it's rolled out to other parts of the country where people need title deeds?
Already what His Excellency the President has done is to constitute a committee of a cabinet which involves the Ministry of National Housing and Social Amenities, the Ministry of Local Government, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Publicity, Communication and Publicity. They are also part to this committee which was established by Cabinet specifically for the purposes of giving guidance to the issue of issuing title deeds to the people. The view that His Excellency the President has is that of improving the security of tenure by the residents, and again that of accelerating the housing delivery. For instance, if one gets his or her title deeds today, there is a possibility that you can approach some financial institutions to obtain a loan, and the collateral will be the title deed. And once you get the funds, you can deploy the funding towards constructing the second house. Most of these settlements that we are intending to issue title deeds on have to be replanned. There has to be replanning on those settlements, and they have to be surveyed for the purposes of issuing the title deeds, and some services have to be provided, like the roads and the sewer, the water, for it to be a proper settlement. And in the planning, we also have to ascertain whether or not some land which was supposed to be used for establishment of the amenities that supports the settlement have been occupied, or they would still be free. So a lot is happening in the area of the actual planning. For Epworth and Chitungwiza, which are the current areas that we are currently working on, we have some field offices that have already been established where people can go from their homes to understand the process by which their titles can be issued. There are some documents that will be required from them as they approach the field offices that have already been established there. You will notice that the actual issuance of the document is done by the Ministry of Justice, through the Registrar of Deeds. As we speak, an office or a one-stop shop has been created in the Ministry of Justice for the purposes of completing all the processes that would be required until until a title has been issued. So this time we will be issuing electronic title deeds. We have seen, from what is happening, a lot of people are falling into wrong hands and ending up losing their properties that they would have sweated for a lifetime, but it can just vanish.
The electronic title deeds, is this a process that you are rolling out for every other property holder in the country?
All those that were issued before will have to be replaced by the electronic title deeds, so that the aspect of tampering and counterfeiting will be avoided. You also notice that our fathers and some who worked in government and who also had access to some government-funded programs for acquisition of houses. Even to this day, most of them do not have title deeds. So we are also on a mission to ensure that those title deeds will be issued for the various programs or projects by which these beneficiaries got the houses. As a ministry, we are focusing on 21,000 units around the country, some which were issued through local authorities, our councils, and some which were issued directly by the ministry. Most of those beneficiaries do not have title deeds. So we are also working concurrently with this program that was launched by His Excellency. We are also working on providing title deeds to those people who have participated in the various programs by government for them to own, to have security of tenure through issuance of title deeds.
Lastly, Honorable Minister, what does 2025 hold for you as a minister and the ministry?
Very bright prospects, given that our target for NDS1, according to what's on the ground, our target for vision for NDS1 will be achieved. Of that of realizing 1 million housing units, that is definite. And like I indicated, that the issue of title deeds is actually work in progress, and a lot of work has been done in 2024. So as we go into 2025, the nation should expect massive rollout of title deeds. And like I indicated earlier on, that the wish of His Excellency is for people to have security of tenure of their properties, and also to enable them to utilize their title deeds to obtain more funding for further expansion. So 2025, we expect that people will have access to some loan funding through the title deeds that we are going to be issuing, and a lot more houses should be seen to be constructed in 2025. Again, I indicated that we will do more, especially on our rural aspect. You know, the mandate of the ministry also sees on the aspect of deep tanks that are being constructed in rural areas, schools that are being constructed, those creches in the rural areas, even the roads that are being constructed in the rural areas. So 2025, we are already finalizing our tool or our mechanism that we will use to collect all that data for houses that are being constructed in rural areas. So there is a lot of work, including the projects that we did not complete around the country. So many projects in Bait Bridge. We have a project that is aimed at accommodating civil servants there. The expansion that happened at the border entails that a lot of people will have to be deployed to work, to man the border there. So that's our responsibility as National Housing, to ensure that those people are properly housed. We don't want, like, people from Zimra to be accommodated by smugglers. You know, they will be compromised, in their performance of their duties. So it is the role of the ministry to ensure that houses are provided. An emotional project that we would want to complete in 2025 is the Kasese housing scheme, which is aimed at providing houses and stands for the people that are at Mahombe Kombe. You know, a settlement that was created temporarily to accommodate people way back in 1960s when Kariba Dam was constructed. And later that settlement continued to exist to this day. And the danger is some electricity pylons are passing above that settlement, which is a hazard, yeah, to the lives of the people. So that is another project which the nation should expect to be realized in 2025.
There's a lot, Honorable Minister. I want to thank you so much for sharing with us the achievements, the challenges, as well as the prospects for 2025 coming from the Honorable Minister of National Housing and Social Amenities, Honorable Zhemu Soda. It's been a pleasure having you on State of the Economy.
Thank you very much.
You were watching State of the Economy. Let's make a date again for another edition. I'm Justin Mahlahla. Pleasant viewing.